I heard it said that if somebody published a poetry book, it is like throwing something to the Grand Canyon and wait for an echo. So you can imagine how much I thank you jointly and severally, each one of you all together for being here. Because it's very hateful to talk to chairs and walls. I wanted to thank also Jessie, who is there. Jessie?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Thank you very much for arranging this
Oh, you're welcome.
presentation for me. Everybody knows that a country is not just a place on a geographical map. It is the place, not in vain it's called homeland, native land, because this is the place where one was born, grew up. That is where his parents are, his friends, his relatives, and possibly his first love. So of course he is very attached to that. And the country really carries its own language, a whole entire culture, all its own. But sometimes the opposite situation occurs. It's not the country that carries the language, it's the language that carries the country. This happens when people are removed from their country and they still pine for it and they still miss it and they carry it in their mind and in their language. Especially writers that live in words and in language. When you lose your country, you carry it in your mind, and it is like a snail, really, that carries his home with him wherever he goes. It is said about Albert Camus, the French writer, the Algerian-born French writer, that he said that French is his native land. His is really a very particular case, but it is true about many, many writers. Now, when we came to America, which I thought would be for 2 years and it's now 44, we came to New York. In the enormity of New York, I felt very lost, actually. And I looked for shelter in the square Hebrew letters, envisioning them like the white cubicles of the houses in Tel Aviv, where there is sky, blue sky, and sun shining on me from above. And I was kind of really finding warmth there. And I lived inwardly in Hebrew, and outwardly around me I was surrounded by an English-speaking world that kept entering me slowly. I sipped it with my coffee every morning, and slowly but surely it seeped into me, making me like becoming actually part of my being without almost noticing, but slowly but surely. For after all of us human were taken from the same batch of earth. So if we don't have a common country, we still have a common ground. Perhaps by way of trying to reconcile both worlds, I tried to translate my Hebrew poems into English. Well, translation is said to be like kissing a bride through a veil. I say maybe it's better than no kiss at all. But to make it even worse, I mean, if a writer translates his or her own work, he feels very free with it. to do what he wants or she wants. I was very free, I took lots of leisure, and the English poem came something entirely different than the Hebrew, so not faithful at all. And it didn't give any sense of accomplishment, really. I was waking some days in Hebrew and some days in English. And that's how my life carried for some time. Until then, all of a sudden, out of the blue, I landed on an English poem. I was walking to work, and suddenly I felt something. It tickles, it ticked, and suddenly it clicked. And I saw that it is a short, hermetic, unmistakably English poem that came from English, and then I wrote it in English in my mind. And I didn't know at the time that this was my breakthrough. And this happened already many, many years ago. And ever since, I'm writing in both languages, using English and Hebrew like both my hands.